What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Interstellar. This film was first requested to me by Tanmay Joshi on my Central Intelligence review that I released almost a month ago. This is actually Tanmay Joshi's second review request that I've done now, so I want to give a big thank you to him for being so active on this channel and requesting such awesome movies for me. It seems like a lot of us here love sci-fi, so I'm glad I'm not alone on this channel in my sci-fi nerdiness. But anyway, let's get into my review of Interstellar. Okay, so Interstellar is a 2014 epic sci-fi film directed by Christopher Nolan, who you may know from his directorial work on the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Memento, and The Prestige. Interstellar was written by the Nolan brothers, Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, and stars Matthew Mcconaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, and Casey Affleck, among others. This movie kicks off around the year 2070 or so, and lets us know that Earth is quickly becoming an uninhabitable planet. There's dust storms, and combine that with the crop blight on Earth that's made farming extremely difficult, and you have a food shortage and an atmosphere that threatens humanity's survival. There are no more armies, and everyone's way of life has changed because they've been forced to adapt to an Earth that's degrading and starving its inhabitants. The thing the world needs most is more farmers because they're struggling to feed the world's population due to the increasing difficulty of farming itself due to the crops constantly dying out. So Matthew McConaughey's character Joseph Cooper, a former pilot and engineer turned farmer and father of two, is eventually asked by Michael Caine's character Professor Brand of NASA to pilot an expedition through a mysterious wormhole near Saturn that leads to another galaxy with potentially inhabitable planets. The goal was to find a new planet where humans can mass migrate to and call their new home because the conditions on Earth are quickly becoming unsuitable for sustaining human life. Okay, so I gotta say I really love Interstellar. I loved it when I first saw it back in theaters in November of 2014, and I loved it again when I watched it yesterday. The thing with Christopher Nolan directed films is that he's built up such a passionate fan base that there's going to be some people who like his films pretty much no matter what. I'm definitely not one of those people, although I do for the most part love his movies. I love the Dark Knight movies and Memento, but I didn't really like Inception all that much. I think it was pretty overrated. Hot take of the day, I know, so feel free to disagree with me in the comments. But anyway, on the topic of Interstellar, I love it because it does exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's provide you some epic space adventure at a really high level. This film is at its best when it's being a thought-provoking scientific spectacle. The visuals in this movie are absolutely outstanding, and they really allow you to embed your mind in this story and feel like you're right there with these space pioneers who are discovering other planets from another galaxy. This is exciting for one, because obviously most of us have never been anywhere near space, and two, because our current technological limitations make it so we can barely even send humans past the moon, let alone through a wormhole to another galaxy. This movie also gets you thinking on a deeper level about scientific concepts. While it's not 100% accurate from my understanding, there's definitely a lot of scientific concepts that are presented in this movie that got me interested in the theories behind them to the point of researching them, where I can guarantee you I would have never done such a thing had I not seen this film. There's a wormhole, the theory of time relativity or time dilation, they discuss the level of nitrogen in the atmosphere, and so on. Now, I sucked at science in high school, hence why I got a communications degree and I review movies instead of working with Stephen Hawking on his black hole theories. Even if I was good at science, I'd probably be Stephen Hawking's last choice. But I bring up my failures at science because I had very little interest in space and the science behind our atmosphere prior to this movie, but now I do. Did Interstellar just make learning fun? Oh god, is Bill Nye behind this? Bill, come out from behind the curtains, you sly bastard. No, but seriously, Interstellar makes learning fun, albeit not always 100% accurate. So this is a great movie in my opinion, but it's not always great. I'm not one of these kind of movie watchers, but I do know some people that will turn a movie off if they're not captivated by the first 30 minutes or so. And this movie likely will not captivate you in the first half hour. The first half or so of Act 1 is just pretty stale, and I don't say that because there's no space adventure, I say that because the writing is pretty heavy-handed, and the events that take place are sort of boring. The dialogue in these first 30 minutes is really bad, and the actors go off on these lectures about the good old days and how their way of thinking was just the best and so on, and it feels really silly and sort of cliche. But thankfully, the first 30 minutes are not indicative of how the rest of the movie goes, because if so, this review would be going much differently than it is now. This isn't to say that the dialogue and writing is always top-notch for the rest of the film, because it's not. It usually is, but not always. There's definitely some lines of dialogue here and there that are pretty corny and ultimately make you go, that was a little unnecessary, just stick to the Space Odyssey business. Not gonna spoil anything, but mostly these lines are about humans and love, and you're just like, okay, whatever, we need to focus on the important matters at hand here, let's table this love talk for another time until we save Earth. But yeah, the dialogue of this movie is really good overall, aside from the first 30 minutes or so, and a few spots here and there later in the movie. The acting in this movie is great as well. Matthew McConaughey is great once again, and he does a really good job being an extremely intelligent and witty protagonist that can also show complex emotions when need be. There's one scene in particular that will really have you moved, almost moved me to man tears personally, but I won't spoil that for you now. Anne Hathaway, who played Dr. Amelia Brand, Professor Brand's daughter, is also fantastic in this movie. She was the perfect person for this role because she was extremely convincing in the role of a scientist and space pioneer, and when she needed to, she acted the emotional scenes in an extremely compelling and convincing way. She definitely shined in this role. Okay, Jessica Chastain, who plays Murphy, Cooper's daughter, is great as usual in this one. You guys have never met me in real life, but if you had, you know that I'm a really big Jessica Chastain fan. To me, she's pretty much great in anything she does, and Interstellar is no exception. Now, just to be clear, the movie starts off with young Murphy, who is played by Mackenzie Foy, who is really great too. Both of these actresses nailed this role, and it truly felt like they were playing the same character, albeit at very different points in their life with different life experiences and influences. Okay, so Casey Affleck, who plays Tom, Cooper's son, doesn't get a ton of screen time, but he does a really good job in this one with the time he's given. I really would like to see him in more big movies like Interstellar because he made Tom a really interesting character that was pretty much the polar opposite to his sister Murphy. Murphy is the smart, intellectual one and usually the emotionally distressed one, while Tom is the simple farmer just trying to make ends meet and support his family with what Earth has left to give. Michael Caine as Professor Brand shine once again. He's a key figure in this movie because he's really the mastermind behind this grand plan to save humanity from extinction by relocating to other planets. He makes a lot of really tough sacrifices, and his character deals with them in a way that was really interesting to me as a viewer. Okay, so back to the story. I thought the emotional investment that this movie asked me to put in was really high, and the payoff was more than worth it. Because you cut back to a couple different perspectives of this grand plan to save humanity, you obviously get the space pioneers traveling to other galaxies to look for a new home for humanity, and you get the people on Earth trying to simply survive. But the thing that will really get you invested is how these two storylines affect and interact with one another. Obviously, Cooper having to go on this space expedition and leave his children on Earth was not an easy decision for him, and you see the consequences of that when Tom and Murphy start growing up without his guidance, and there's some resentment there among those two. Interstellar does a great job showing you everything that these astronauts are sacrificing by agreeing to go on this space expedition. They're obviously putting their lives in immediate danger, and they also are leaving their loved ones behind on Earth who they may never see again. The film makes you feel what the characters feel in regards to their loss and sacrifices. Okay, so some of you are probably wondering, is this movie too sciencey and will I be bored? I say definitely not, because you really don't need to always understand what's going on to enjoy the show. I don't think I really understood the movie completely until my second or third watch, and I still loved it regardless because of the drama and epic space adventure involved. The characters and visuals are so great that even if you don't completely understand what's going on, you'll probably still love it. Nolan movies can be a tad confusing though, so I usually walk out having to think about it pretty intensely before I really grasp the plot as a whole. Another thing to keep in mind is that this movie is just under 3 hours long, so just a heads up if you don't like long movies for whatever reason. One last thing I want to mention is the music. I thought it was really fantastic. It's a very unique sounding score composed by Hans Zimmer, and it adds to the epicness and emotion of what you're seeing on screen very well. It's definitely some of the best music I've heard in a movie in a while, to be completely honest. Overall though, I thought this movie had some amazing visuals and space adventure, a thought-provoking and emotional story, great acting and a great cast, and awesome music that added to the film's epicness and emotion. I also thought the first half or so of Act 1 was bland and cliche, and the dialogue could be a tad corny at times. I'm still going to give this movie a very solid 9.5 out of 10 and say that it's an absolute must-watch if you're into sci-fi or anything related to space adventure. Now you would think that with those two knocks I put on this movie that I'd lower my rating lower than 9.5. But no, because this movie certainly has its weak points, but its strong points are so strong that they more than make up for the film's weaker elements. The good is so good that it really outweighs the bad and makes you almost forget that there was any bad at all. But anyway, did you guys see Interstellar yet? What did you think of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if not, let me know whether this is your kind of movie or not. And as always, if you like this video, click that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for much more content like this. Thanks again to Tanmay Joshi for the request, whose channel link you can find in the description below. Don't forget to keep sending me your review requests and I'll choose my favorites and the most liked ones and review that movie and give your channel a shout out in that video. That's all for now. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.